Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our wrestling podcast. So without further ado, the following contest is scheduled for one fall, and today's topic, the WCW legacy of the Macho Man Randy Savage.
It's gonna go down, call the Wrestle War Night. The kings of the ring all come together and do the wild thing. Lex Luger, the stylish, Nature Boy thing. Yeah, they all be doing that wild thing. Yeah, they all be there with something to prove. Brimming with intentions to bust the move. It's pay-per-view excitement from THE. For more information, call your cable company. Wow, wow, wow.
Welcome to the O.W.P. This is our wrestling podcast. This is Dave along with Jess.
Yo.
And Cuz.
Oh, yeah.
Bringing you our perspective on the world of professional wrestling. No inside sources, no ties to the industry, just stories from the diehards, sharing opinions with you. And now on to our topic today, the legacy of the Macho Man post WWF. We're talking about WCW and beyond. As always, you can reach us via Instagram at O.W.P 2019, SoundCloud at Our Wrestling Podcast, YouTube at Our Wrestling Channel, or you can do the easy thing and download WrestlePost. It's an app at no charge to you. Android or Apple platforms will work, and you can join us along with other great podcasts of the day. So we got Macho Man WWF kind of put down. We're excited. But we got to talk about beyond WWF. That's why we split this into 2 episodes. It's really hard to discuss the career of the Macho Man as broad as we're covering it in just 1 episode. It doesn't really work that way. You guys have anything you want to say about last week's episode of Macho Man WWF style before we get started into the WCW run and beyond?
I mean, I think that's where his legacy was made, and a lot of people think
For sure.
WWF is when you think Macho Man, you think WWF, but he was actually in WCW for a while, and the same length almost, right?
There was a good 6 years, to start. Yeah.
Almost the same. Hulk is the same thing. Like, I think Hulk was, in WWF from 84 to 93, taking a year off there. And then Hulk was in WCW from 94 to 2000.
It's another interesting argument. I know we talked about it in our Hogan versus Flair episode back in our archives, but Hogan and Flair were in the same federations longer than they weren't for their careers.
Yeah.
When you really think about it, that's fascinating. You wouldn't think that because they didn't really go head to head until WCW, but that's the thing. Like, Macho spent more time in WCW than you really tend to think, because it does get overshadowed by this little thing called the NWO, but whatever.
But at the same time, like, it's WCW, right? We were talking about
shit show.
In part 1, we talked about the genius of the year-long storytelling between Hogan and Savage, the Mega Powers exploding and all this stuff, and Savage's dynamic with Elizabeth and all that stuff. Like, and that was great storytelling. Vince was always about that. WCW was a fucking shit show. And the NWO, when Savage first joined, the NWO had not formed yet, and Hulk had only been brought in like 3-4 months before. And I'm sure Hulk coaxed Savage into coming over because it was for more money, less dates, and it was in the ring. And I think Savage wanted. So I say the first tale of Macho Man, as far as WWF is concerned, in episode 1, is more the tale of like what he did, how he established his character and name. And he was a part of the WWF machine. That does not discount the talent of Macho Man, but the great storylines came along with it. And the way Vince would nurture characters and nurture storylines, that was a big deal. Now we're going to get to a thing where you're not in an environment in WCW where anything was really nurtured that well.
No.
They were just trying to throw shit against the wall and hope something stuck. So they got a talent like Macho Man. So I think this part 2 is all, like, to me, a tribute to the Macho Man's actual talent. Because he had to go in there with a company that didn't really know how to hype like Vince did, didn't really know what the fuck to do half the time. But Macho's so good that he got in there, and he showed that I have a reserve tank.
In spite of all that, he's still got.
Yeah, I'm not done. I have a reserve tank. I can benefit you in the ring. I can do well. So this part, I would like to say, for as shitty as WCW is, as far as like creatively, and the buck stopped with Vince in WWF, but the buck never stopped with anybody in WCW really. I think that this is a tribute to Macho Man and his talent.
Agreed. Because you have anything to add before we jump into 1994 WCW?
Yeah, isn't it funny? All the perfect circumstances, like you mentioned. What if Weir didn't get suspended? Would we have seen the Macho Man getting bitten by the snake? Would we seen the Macho Man losing that match with?
He's
Ric
doing
Flair?
everything in the Macho Man voice now.
He's actually Macho Man. Right now.
Oh yeah.
But if none of that,
So now he's a regular guy and he can't talk. But if you went back to Macho Man right now, he'd be so articulate. Well, I think if you want to talk about politics and economics, let's talk about politics.
Macho Man.
The Macho Man discussing
Macho Man
politics.
can talk to you about it. Yeah. If those things didn't pan out in those perfect scenarios, we wouldn't have this run right here. Macho Man wouldn't have made it this far.
Yeah, it
It's
probably
funny how everything had to happen so perfect.
it wouldn't have been as big as it was, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I
just
agree.
like with the Hogan thing.
Yeah.
Like how Jess was talking about, people believed people fantasize about Macho Man, he should have beat Hogan.
Yeah.
It's like
Man,
all the
fuck.
things happen perfectly, and look, right things happen. Hogan is the biggest star. He 2 times.
Yeah.
And then NWO, and then Macho Man.
Take its course, brother.
Yeah.
Those iconic moments, the snake biting him, everything.
And that's what's so interesting. I mean, Hogan was a big part of bringing Savage in, and you're talking about
To
Hogan a little
WCW,
bit.
right?
Yeah,
And
to,
then
to,
to
to,
this
to
moment
W-
of
yeah,
him
I'm sorry,
going
to
to
WCW in '94. Macho's biggest
Four-time
storyline didn't even involve a match. It was what he was going to do when he met up with Hogan face to face. Will he shake his hand, brother?
Yeah,
Or
they were
will he
hyping
punch him
to
out?
Starrcade '94, which the match was fucking the Butcher, which is Brutus Beefcake against Hulk Hogan, which
Oh
is
my
fucking
God.
awful.
Yeah,
And it's as awful as it sounds, folks. So the bloom had fallen off the rose. Is that how you say it? In WCW in a short fashion. I mean, they brought Hulk in. He spiked ratings real quick. He
Yeah.
spiked buy rates. Him and Flair had their thing. Hulk wins the title in Bash at the Beach '94.
yeah,
The wrestling world is shocked because Hulk's with WCW now. WCW can actually benefit from his national name and his, advertisers now are like, oh, you got Hulk? Yeah, we'll buy a spot on your TV program. So Bischoff succeeded when it came to that because Bischoff was at the helm at this point.
sure. And they were turning a profit finally too.
Yeah,
by the way.
finally. And Hulk helped them get there. Yes, he made a lot of money and he was super rich. Well, he was already rich coming in, but I mean, he got really rich from WCW. It did what Bischoff needed to, like, politically and behind the scenes administratively. So he was able to get certain sponsors that they never could get before as the number 2 promotion.
Sure.
A lot of things happened. So Hulk, of course, is in Bischoff's ear and let's hire this guy and this guy. And you know what? Like, I was talking to Randy. And, Hulk and Randy had a rocky relationship leaving the WWF, so they kind of repaired it. And Hulk said, look, man, they'll get you in the ring here. It's only going to be like 100 something days a year.
Yeah,
And
limited
they're going
days.
to pay you the same money, but like, you're basically going to have like half the dates. And like Macho Man also brought his Slim Jim shit over. Slim Jim got into bed with Macho Man, not necessarily WWF. Now Vince will never make that mistake again.
No.
But yeah, so Savage left the WWF and took the Slim Jim sponsorship with him and went to WCW with it, which is a major coup for WCW. So now Bischoff has Hulk and he has Macho Man, which both those guys translate, their household names. So they're
They
bigger
draw.
than kind of wrestling itself. And
Sure.
so now you have Slim Jim, which is an automatic, like, now it's in WCW. So now WCW is doing all these commercials with Macho Man going snap into Slim Jim and all this stuff. So it was just Bischoff was just fucking like, yes, like just finally making it work.
Bischoff basically brags that he's like, I didn't pay Macho Man. I mean, Slim Jim basically paid Macho Man because the money that I was getting for the Slim Jim stuff was almost, it was very similar to what we were paying Macho. So it was kind of a wash, So he's like, in his mind, he got Macho for free. He's like, how do you get Macho Man for free? Who could draw like the Macho Man can. So he kind of brags about that, but it is kind of I think it's crazy. I think if Macho really wanted to push, he could have gotten way more money from Bischoff out of this deal, but Macho just wanted to come work, I think, and wanted to get into something different because he was we talked about his struggles in the past episode, everything going on in his personal life, and I think he did want less dates, probably hoping to repair some things with some prior people. Didn't happen.
Yeah.
And somebody else was there, by the way, too, eventually over time. Elizabeth, the show player. We'll get into that in a minute.
Finally arriving at World Championship Wrestling, this man has done it all. The Macho Man Randy Savage. Welcome to Atlanta. Ooh, yeah.
There it is. Yeah, and that's where, so on that WCW Saturday night, Savage actually saves Hogan from an assault at the hands of the Three Faces of Fear. Look that up if you want to, I guess. And the two are good for now. Savage has a few tag matches with Sting, but he rolls on to... am I going too fast?
No, it's Starrcade is when that happened.
Oh, it wasn't...
Yeah. WCW Saturday Night is where Gene Okerlund introduced Savage, and Savage showed up for the first time in WCW television.
Oh, my bad. Yeah.
And Gene Okerlund's like, "What are you going to do?" He's like, "We'll have to see. I have a huge history."
Yeah, I
with
was jumping on that. Yeah, I was basically saying eventually after that situation. Yeah.
And at the main event of Starrcade, that's when Hulk gets cornered by he pins the Butcher, and then the Faces of Fear all come in there. Or the Dungeon of Doom. And then Macho
I kind of jumped ahead, yeah.
Yeah, and then Macho comes in there and looks like he's going to side with the Dungeon of Doom, and then ends up turning on them, and then the Mega Powers are reformed.
Yeah, for a minute.
Starrcade, 94 WCW.
And Savage has a few tag matches with Sting. After that, he rolls on to another feud with Flair. I kind of joke because I hear Jess going, "Let's do what Vince does." So Savage and Flair kind of happens again.
We're gonna make the money.
And this is where the tandem of Savage and Hogan would defeat Flair and Vader at Slamboree 95, and that feud would continue into.
They were just so afraid, and this is me actually being a smart mark, looking ahead to what wrestling became in '96 and how the realism kind of worked out better, and it's just God right away like. Oh, man. I can understand how people attack Bischoff and how they said, Hulk and Savage's contracts. How are you making money? Well, Bischoff is a lot smarter financially than people give him credit for.
Yeah.
Because Bischoff was all about ratings and advertising dollars.
Yeah.
Whereas he didn't really give a shit about house shows because he took that away in '93.
He took house shows completely away.
So Bischoff was coming at it from a different thing. He was copying a lot of what Vince did in the early '80s, but he was also, and using his people, obviously.
He was going the exact opposite.
But he was also just trying to, now the wave of the future is advertising dollars.
And television.
And ratings and television. So he was doing all that. And then once that gets strong, then I could do house shows.
Yeah, and house shows will fill out.
Yeah, I'm going to turn a profit first before I fucking lose money, You can't be losing money and then go on house shows and then lose more money and then try to get ahead. Let me fucking cut house shows. Let me get big names in here that could actually bring Slim Jims, and Hulk brought national attention and all that stuff and all that. Let me get that shit going first, get our TV super strong, get advertising dollars coming in, pay the rest of my fucking roster. How about that?
I hate to get into current stuff too, but it sounds like a formula that a certain little rogue federation is doing right now. They've had a few promotions at this point.
Vince is doing that now.
Yeah, but I'm talking about AEW doing a few promotions, a few pay-per-views that will sell out in 15 minutes, get hotter, and then have a TV deal before you even do house shows.
Vince is doing that now more. I mean, his business isn't great right now, but yet his advertising dollars are so strong. They're a public company. Yeah. Their stock is so huge right now that people are like, you're gold.
Everything's fine.
Even though the fucking ratings are awful and the attendance is super down, not to go on a tangent. Yeah. But so Bischoff kind of had that sort of seed planted where let me get TV strong first. So he did that. And then, they just let's do what Vince does because the money will do. But he didn't do stupid shit. So this is where I give Bischoff credit where a lot of people want to shit on him. He got a name later for ATM Eric or whatever, but no, he was parlaying money over, from Slim Jim to cover this, to cover that. He was doing super smart fucking shit. And part of Hulk's contract was you get movies that are paid for by TBS and Turner, so he didn't have to fucking fork that money out. So part of Hulk's contract was to get money to be in a movie. You know what I mean? So it didn't cost WCW a dime really. So Bischoff is doing smart shit back here, but people didn't know it because it was all behind the scenes stuff. But on the camera, it was let's reform the Mega Powers, let's have them beat Flair, it was all the same stuff they were doing before. Yeah. But I have to say,
they are feeling their way through to find out what's
Great American Bash 95. The main event was Savage versus Flair, and that was a really fucking good match. Go back to the network and watch the main event of Great. It was really good. They had Angelo Popo there, and it was actually done on Father's Day, and which is tomorrow from when we're recording right now. And no, it's not. It's in 2 days. Whatever. Fuck you guys. So
cut it.
He hit that ball out of the 1, 2, 3 goes. Ladies and gentlemen,
So if you go back and watch that match, because they did rehash the Randy Savage and Flair thing, but they did an awesome match at the main event of Great American Bash '95, and it was really good and physical. Both guys seemed to rewind the clock back like 10 years, and like they were awesome. And the ending sequence was awesome. Savage lost to Flair. Flair hits him right in the fucking face with the cane, Angelo Papa's cane, and pins him. And Savage will,
Flair's a fucking genius.
It was such a great match, and they actually went on.
I'm going to hit you with your father's cane and beat you.
They toured house shows. They rematched at Bash at the Beach '95, which was live on the Huntington Beach. And Savage beat Flair with an elbow and all that stuff.
Cuz looks like a fucking 13-year-old ready to go to sleep right now.
He seriously is right now.
He's ready to take a nap, bro.
Pay attention to the laptop.
He's not. This is great.
You ain't pay attention to shit,
bro. Gotta
get
video in here because this is the greatest thing ever. But
oh my god,
he's regular cuz right now. But the second he goes into Macho Man, he's completely articulate.
Yeah,
like,
he's fucking every word. He's sober.
Yeah, E equals MC squared. But then, cuz, tell us about what you're doing.
He gets think about the cosmos. He's that airline pilot. It's 30,000 feet. I'm sorry.
Think about the cosmos.
Sorry. Continue.
Completely clear. They did rehash Flair and Savage and all that, but actually did really well. And both guys, I think, had something to prove. Again, Flair, who was one of the main reasons why Hulk even fucking came to WCW, fucking jobs out, gets shit on. And then it's just like, hey, Randy, want a feud? Yeah, let's do it. It's like, so the whole, but they did really well with it. It kind of showed me even back here in '94 that Savage can still go. He can still do it.
Yeah. He was in
'95, actually.
And it's interesting. Flair would always seem to get the best of him, but Savage does pick up some wins along the way against the likes of the Butcher and stunning Steve Austin, What? We all know who that is.
Oh!
I mean, can you imagine, go back and watch that match and kind of see maybe that didn't mesh, but it's interesting to know that Macho Man actually did wrestle Stone Cold Steve Austin before he was Stone Cold Steve Austin. I mean, it's kind of cool.
He wasn't actually part of the U.S. tournament or something like that.
I think
he beat Austin like 3 minutes.
He did beat Austin. Yeah. He beat
like
Austin.
3 minutes or some shit.
Yeah. That's okay.
The one and only time
it's just fun to see them in the ring together. And even though like Flair always seems to get the number on Savage, even when Savage wins the fucking WCW title, I mean, Savage wins this fucking title in a 60-man 3-ring battle.
World War III,
right? Made decisions that will affect our lives forever. But nothing will prepare you for this. World War III.
60 men, 3 rings, a battle royal where only one will survive. It's WCW.
And that's all great, but then fucking he just loses it a month later to Flair.
Well, not even that. It's like, and Hulk fucking gets involved because he's a bitch.
God damn it.
And so Hulk fucking does this whole thing where, he doesn't actually go over the top rope at World War III '95, and he gets pulled out from under the ropes by the Giant. He beats the Giant. Macho Man wins. The referee doesn't see Hulk not get eliminated. They assumed he was eliminated, so they give the title to Savage. And Hulk, again, Monday Nitro had launched in September of that year, so now they're fighting every week for TV, right?
On Nitro, yeah.
And Hulk did the whole thing of like, you know what, brother, you're champion for now, but I didn't lose and blah, 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 and do this whole thing.
And that's even more interesting because you talked about Nitro and you're talking about TV
I don't know
ratings.
if interesting with the word. I remember
I'm saying
being
like
boring as shit. I would actually rub my head against the carpet.
I'm not talking about that.
That would be more eventful.
God damn it. Take my words and twist them all
I'm
to
sorry.
shit.
I'm saying WCW was bad creatively at this point.
No, that's fine. I'm saying it's interesting that you talked about Nitro because Nitro, you said fighting for ratings. It's actually where Macho already wins his second WCW title is on Nitro against Flair. Of all things, they're going to do a title change on a regular like
Nitro.
syndicated cable TV show, not a pay-per-view. And that's where it's going to go down. I just find that amazing, and that's it's just one of those things where he wins it, and then guess what? A month later, what the fuck happens? Who does he lose to again?
Flair.
Fucking Flair.
At Super Bowl, right?
Yeah, man. Fucking Jesus Christ. Like,
no, but that was good though. Their feud was actually really good. Elizabeth actually ended up turning on Randy. Elizabeth came back at this point.
Yeah.
And she actually ended up turning on Randy, and then Woman and Elizabeth would be in Flair's corner for the next year or so. So yeah, like it wasn't the greatest storylines ever, but it really just, again, it showed that Macho had a lot left in the tank. Their matches were very good, actually. Again, drawn out, but I mean, Hulk was
you can't go wrong.
He
with
was
Savage
on limited
and Flair.
dates and all that stuff. But the thing was, is like, So now they knew they had Savage. So they're like, well, Flair and Savage could do the house shows while Hulk fucking, I don't know, what he sucks his own dick somewhere. Like,
Whoa.
because he doesn't, Hulk never did house shows. He never barely
There's
did
probably
anything.
somebody that would pay for that. I mean,
brother.
I would, brother.
He's sitting right here, brother.
oh no.
Yeah.
Oh
would.
man. So like I said, Flair back to Savage, back to Flair. Sounds like a broken record. The feud honestly gets overshadowed by a little thing called the Invasion. Later known as the NWO.
Well,
So what? Won the fight about it?
it gradually happened. Like the summer of '96 started. Scott Hall came out. Nash came out. We have a third guy. We're coming up from up north. They would never say they're coming from WWF, but we're coming from up north.
Yeah.
And that's just sparked. That changed everything in the wrestling landscape. So it was kind of a wrestling war since they both debuted, since Nitro debuted in the September of '95. And they would just, they were trading off back and forth, rating wins. It was just,
Sure.
Nitro was live on Monday and so was Raw. So it was cool for wrestling fans because we had 2 shows we can go to. So that's why I really enjoy that. I mean, both shows were actually kind of shitty in 95, 96, but like you got a choice finally. And then, Bischoff started bringing in cruiserweights and stuff like that. And, Michaels was on the other channel. And so was Brett. And so was Tate.
It really was
So was Taker.
a tide shift. Yeah.
Yeah, and so then you start doing it. Then out of nowhere, the cruiserweights start getting a little bit of traction. Nitro looks a little fresher. And 96, Hulk leaves for a while. And so they start kind of rebuilding here. And then all of a sudden, Hulk comes out of the crowd.
Hey, yo.
Then 2 weeks later, Nash comes out.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're just like, we're Scott Hall and we're Kevin Nash.
Hey,
and we're
yo.
invading from up north. And, you guys treated us like shit before. And you guys are a second-rate promotion. We're invading.
Sure about that?
Oh, fuck, really? Yeah, and we have a third guy, too, by the way. So, fast forward to Bash at the Beach, 1996, and we have Savage and Luger, and there was supposed to be a third, and Sting, sorry, against Hall and Nash and a third guy. Well, Hall and Nash show up. There's no third guy.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, Luger gets knocked out early in the match. So now you're kind of, they did a really good job here because they're like, who the fuck is, Hulk had been off TV for like 3 months.
Brother.
And just because it was time for him to go do another stupid shit movie,
And he had limited dates.
Yeah, and he had
anyway.
limited dates too, so you didn't really think of him that much. And but then you're also like, okay, who's going to be the third man? So they kind of were teasing it all. Is it someone else from WWF? Is it someone from the inside? Who is it? Yeah. So basically, what they did was they knocked Luger out right at the beginning of the match. Luger gets put up against the pole by accident and gets carted out in a stretcher. Is it Luger? Is he faking it? Is Luger going to come back? I don't know. So they did this whole thing where it could have been Luger, it could have been anybody. Out walks Hulk Hogan at the very end. And the place goes nuts. And he gets in there, tears his shirt, looks down at Macho Man, and drops the leg on him. And the place goes crazy. And Hall and Nash get back in. They start hugging and high-fiving. Trash fucking flies into the ring from everywhere. Yeah. And yeah,
Great
Savage was laying on the ground. And basically, he was the fall guy. He was the guy that kind of allowed Hulk to turn heel and join the NWO.
And he takes the NWO spray paint across the back at that time too, right? Or
no, they didn't do spray paint.
Oh, that
yet.
was later.
But they did. The main event of Halloween Havoc 96, which I was there live, by the way, was Hulk versus Macho. And it was really entertaining. It was really fun. It wasn't as physical as their Mania 5 match or anything.
Sure.
But they went back to the well. Hulk versus Savage, right?
Yeah.
So Elizabeth came back out and she actually sided with Savage again and all that stuff. And Hulk was, the NWO would always grab Elizabeth. They spray painted her back in weeks leading up to it. And they would have beat up Savage and spray paint his back. And finally they faced each other and Hulk cheated to win or whatever. And then Macho Man went away for it.
telling Nick Patrick to. You gotta be kidding me. You got to be kidding me.
Ladies and gentlemen, the winner and still champion. He is the heavyweight champion of the world, Hollywood Hulk Hogan.
They basically couldn't come to terms on a new contract. At that time. He did kind of step off for a bit. Which honestly was probably the best thing because what were you going to do with Savage at that point?
Right.
I think it's funny. I don't think it was deliberate, but I think it worked because if Savage is going to be that face and he's going to lose out like that, he needs to go away for a while. It's almost like if they were going to do a storyline to it and he was under contract, they should have given him an injury and had him leave for months and make the comeback trail. But it was really because they couldn't come to terms on contract.
Right.
But in early 97, we find Savage is back and he's working with Sting as the free agents. I'm using air quotes here.
Yeah. So at this point, Sting was developing his Crow character. He was always up in the rafters. He hadn't spoken and all that. So they're building Sting, but Savage starts appearing with him in the rafters
Yep.
and all that stuff in black and white, like Sting was wearing or whatever, and not really talking. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're fine. And that's where Bischoff kind of comes into the fray and informs Savage, bro, you're gone. You know, you're not tied to WCW anymore. If you want to come back, we've got a spot for you in the NWO though. Well, you know, we've got some there. So basically the only way that Savage can come back is to becomes a member of the NWO. And that causes Savage to basically turn on Sting. But I think that's kind of where we all know about the Sting aftermath. But the whole portion of this was to have Sting eventually go over, you know, months later, almost a year later, on his own, because Sting is going to single-handedly turn the franchise around. And
yeah, it happened at Super Bowl 97. It was Hulk versus Piper.
Yep.
For the WCW title. And so Sting and Savage came down towards the end of the match and they're neutral, quote unquote. And then Sting taps him like, let's go. And then Savage kind of shook his head like, no, I'm staying. And then basically what he did was he turned against Piper, helped Hulk win the title or retain the title. Yep. And then now you knew Savage is NWO.
And that Savage and Elizabeth both are now part of the NWO at that point.
The next couple Monday Nitros, they announced, hey, Macho, we want to make you comfortable here. We got someone for you. And then they announced Elizabeth. And then now the classic couple's back, right? Macho Man and Elizabeth were back. And it was like a thing.
Just not in real life.
Right. Not in real life, but on screen, it was like, but they were heels, but it was kind of right back where they started.
I wonder how uncomfortable that was.
Well, it's kind of poetic. Savage always loved her.
Yeah.
And Genius or Lanny would always say it, like it, after they divorced, Savage learned eventually how to, like, she just loved her as a friend. Yeah. And so he still took care of her. They said he acted exactly the same way backstage. He would protect her. He knew, excuse me. You want to edit that shit out, guys.
Keeping it in, bud.
I'm pissing myself. Oh, shit. Oh, I'm ejaculating. I don't know what's happening. I don't know what I'm doing. I go too far. I have a problem. I'm a piece of shit.
3, 2,
and so,
1.
No, not even 3, 2, 1. Fucking keep that shit in there. So yeah. So like they would talk. Lanny would talk about how even after their divorce and they came back, he always protected her business wise. He wanted to make sure she was okay and all that. So yeah, now on screen they were back, but they were heels again, and they actually did. He would come out with Hall and Nash and stuff and cut promos and all that stuff. And then they attacked DDP and launched into this fucking coolest shit feud with DDP and Macho Man. And they
stole a great feud. Yeah.
God, they stole the show. I think the first one was what? Spring Stampede in 97?
Yeah, I believe so.
They had like was a false count anywhere that time?
Maybe. It's on my notes. But
they started feuding or whatever, and then Kimberly got involved on DDP's behalf, and they did really cool.
It was an 8-month feud. I mean, it was
and so it was their first match was Spring Stampede of '97, and it was awesome because they were testing him out in house shows, and Arn Anderson was kind of like the guy in the back that not an agent per se, but he was sort of like I guess he was an agent, and. So Macho was very, close about who he jobbed to and all that stuff.
Sure.
He's the Macho Man. So I guess they did a couple house shows and Macho would cheat to beat him and all that stuff or whatever. And DDP was pretty over at this point. And, but he needed to go to the next level.
You could argue that DDP wouldn't have reached the heights that he did without Macho.
No. And then, there was one night where they got into arena and it was the final house show before Spring Stampede. And so Savage said, hey, how about tonight? He hits me with a diamond cutter and goes over 1, 2, 3. So Arn Anderson's like, "Are you sure that's what you want?" He's like, "Yeah." So they did it in the house show, and the place went fucking nuts when he did it.
So Macho,
and they got to the back, and then Macho looked at Anderson and looked at DDP, and he's like, "Well, I guess we know what the finish is going to be at Spring Stampede, don't we?" And that was the finish. Where they went out there and Savage was fucking being a dick or whatever, and he pile drove the referee because he's a maniac. And go back and watch this match. Spring Stampede 1997 was fucking fantastic.
It's his son. He got him. He hooked him, boys. He hooked him. That's it. That's it. This place has erupted. Everyone is standing. Savage, when you thought he had Diamond Dallas had Savage. And look at Nick Patrick.
The pressure's on him right now, Brain. He knows he's not going to get up.
Come on, Patrick.
Count him. Go ahead. You better count.
Come on.
1, 2, 3.
He got him. He got him. It's Nick
Okay, so I mean that was such a memorable match, and it put DDP on the map even further. It got him up further on the card, and
Yeah.
it was because Macho Man agreed. Again, we talked. He had more left in the tank.
But
He was ready to fucking rock.
But think about the insight for Macho to understand that and go, because obviously in WWF you didn't have to worry about that. Like people would see that Vince and people and his stooges, to for lack of a better term, would see that and go, "Hey, bro, you can see the tide turning. We're gonna have to put DDP over." And Macho would be like, "Okay, brother." But now Macho's the one going, "Hey, let's try this because
because he's in a dumber locker room.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
this.
he has to be the one to bring that up. But Macho understands the
But
dynamic.
on top about that, like that, and it's a lesson to show people too. When you have a veteran, that veteran being heel and putting a face over is probably the best position you could be in.
Yeah.
If Macho was a face and DDP was a heel, I mean, you could put him over and DDP would cheat like a dirty heel to win. But the veteran being the dirty heel and trying to cheat to win, but the younger face getting over, that's how you put someone over. This is how you put someone over and make a star.
Mm-hmm.
WCW's locker room was not smart enough to do it, but thank God they had people in the back like Savage that knew, you know what, I could right now pull my creative string and be like, I'm beating him, I'm Macho Man. And nobody would have fucking fought him.
Yeah, they would all say, okay.
Even DDP would have been like, sounds good, man, no problem. Macho Man, whatever you want, right? Yeah, cheat me, hit me with brass knucks, do whatever you want or whatever. And most places would think, well, that still is going to get DDP over because he's going to get sympathy, right?
Yeah.
Like, Macho Man's going to cheat to beat him. No, Macho Man's like, no, did you hear that crowd on the house show? They went fucking nuts when he diamond cuttered me and pinned me. So we're going to do that. So DDP even talks about it a lot, saying, here's what happened. Live on pay-per-view, we do it. I hit him with the diamond cutter out of nowhere. The place goes nuts. I crawl over slowly, put my arm over him. 1, 2, 3, place goes bonkers. DDP's instantly made.
Yeah.
And they had rematches. They had a rematch, I think, at the Great American Bash, at Halloween Havoc that year.
Mhm.
And they were pretty good. They're all pretty good matches. Go back and watch all of them. Watch that whole trilogy of matches. It was so good. It was really good.
Absolutely. And, that we always talk about that. DDP was always an up-and-comer, and he was getting he couldn't, obviously, it wasn't just Macho putting him over that did that. DDP was doing a lot of work to get there, but Macho seeing that and putting him over it's really a great thing in wrestling. Because I don't think, to Jess's point, I don't think anybody in the back, I don't think a Bischoff, I don't think a Booker would have said, "Hey, I think we're gonna put DDP over tonight." Because I think they wouldn't have. I think they thought that Macho would.
They would have just said, "Oh, Macho Man, you're going over to make because he's the big money contract."
Well, he's got the big money contract. He's the veteran. He's Macho Man Randy Savage. He has to go over. Well,
major difference between WCW and WWE.
Yeah, does he really though? Not really. It kind of depends on the situation. And Macho saw the situation and said, "No, that's not the best thing for business right now." And for Macho to see that, I always wonder what would happen if Macho got involved in creative and behind the scenes and he hadn't passed on us. I mean, damn, there could have been some gold somewhere because he understood the business better than most wrestlers at that moment did. You would count on other people to understand it, but yeah, he had the creative ability. He understood where to take the crowd. He understood also where the crowd was going. And this is an easy push. Give me the diamond cutter. It's gonna fucking explode because Macho understands it's not about wins and losses. It's about how much money you can make. And they were making a lot of money at that point.
And the fact that DDP's even known now and he got put in the WWE Hall of Fame
because
and all
of
that
Savage.
Stuff. Well, honestly, I think this is Savage's crowning achievement in WCW was putting DDP over. I think that was like the big highlight there.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm just gonna put it out there. DDP, if you're listening, all your yoga segments, which are fantastic. I have a DVD as well. I'm sure Jess has a DVD. You might want to give about 5% of your proceeds to the Macho Man family. Just putting it out there.
I'm sure he already does.
He probably does. Yeah. I'm just saying. You're welcome. That's what I would say. Thank you very much. Right. So, but I say good for DDP because he was amazing, and we got to see some great things there. But Macho certainly helped push that career along. That was awesome. So, as we get into the next feud, why the fuck? I don't know, man. I get really angry about stupid stuff like this. But apparently, the next feud happens to be with Luger, and they do a couple matches together. And Luger goes over both times. God knows why.
And it's hard. Like at the end of 97 and 98 was just kind of like we're just using Savage in here because we can. WCW was on fire as far as ratings and house shows were concerned. 97, 98 were like peak years for that company. So like in 98, they just he was doing shit with Brett. He was doing shit with Piper.
Sure.
He was doing shit with, I don't even know.
Yeah.
Sting, he won the world title from Sting, which is they derailed Sting again. They shit on Sting.
Yeah, you jump a little bit. Yeah, Luger, the feud with Luger was 98.
The whole 98 year from WCW just jumped everywhere.
But that's where Savage gets that title shot with Sting.
He beat Sting at Spring Stampede.
Yeah, with a little help. It's a little bit of a...
And then Hulk wins it. Back. Yeah.
Well, the reason why, at least in my opinion, I mean, literally in that match with Sting, Savage tears his ACL in that match. And that's, in my opinion, why it led to Hogan taking the title the next night.
It would have happened anyway, Dave.
You think so?
Savage would have been fucking healthy as a fucking horse.
Course,
and
brother.
Hulk's like, brother, I got to beat you, brother.
You really believe that?
Yes, I do. Absolutely.
So you think we're wrestling on Monday night and I'm taking the title off you?
Who would have drawn
a night later?
Who drew bigger? Hulk versus Goldberg or Goldberg versus Savage?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Brother.
I'm not saying Hulk beat Savage with I'm going to lose this Goldberg guy. I'm just saying that Hulk fucking took the title off him because he's like, I want to win it again. And
you don't think have to do with the ACL tear?
I lost to Sting. No, it did have to do with the ACL tear, but I mean, like they could have done shit.
He took advantage of it. Is what you're saying.
It could have been who.
I agree with that.
Why couldn't Sting beat him in a rematch?
Sure.
And not derailed Sting's fucking momentum. Like I don't even want to get pissed off.
That's the bigger problem.
They fucking mishandled Sting so fucking bad here. It was because Hulk politicked and Bischoff was sucking his balls. And like it was a fucking bad thing. It's one of the things, people point to the finger poke of doom as what started WCW's decline. Negative.
No,
it was the decisions they made in early 98 and the handling of Sting at the end of 97 into 98 that fucked up WCW to begin with. You build a guy for an entire year and he's supposed to beat your big villain, Hulk Hogan. He's supposed to beat him clean and he doesn't. And they fuck it up. And this is an episode for another time, but I mean, they fuck it up. And then, Savage gang, great. He wins another world title off it. But it really 98 was a fucking clusterfuck for WCW and for Savage, for everybody, for Savage, everybody. Might as well just fucking forward to 99.
To become champion of the world. He drags Savage over. He grabs the referee. And the referee looks one. He looks at two. And he looks in. We've got a new world champion. My God.
Randy Macho Man Savage.
Well, and we're going to get there. I mean, Savage then joined the Wolfpack, the split off of the NWO with Kevin Nash. But he had to leave the company on June 15th of that year to actually recover from 2 knee surgeries. So
he was getting old and he was breaking down.
Yeah, he's breaking down, but he still ran hard. It's Savage. Savage isn't going to let up, bro. I mean, this is who he is. So he has brief returns in WCW with his valets, claiming the team name Team Madness. Who were those valets, Jess? Can you refresh my memory?
It was Mona. Mm-hmm. Which was Molly Holly.
Yeah.
And it was Medusa.
Yep.
And Gorgeous George.
Yeah. So it was just a brief return, and then you're really kind of jumping at this point. It kind of starts the TNA run. He wasn't there for very long.
No, not at all. He won the title in 99.
He won the title in 99, but how long was he actually there?
Not that long.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. I mean, he did get I think he had 4 titles with WCW?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So he doubled up on WWF title runs, but for the heavyweight title, right? But
he fought Rodman at Road Wild 99.
Yeah.
Or Hog Wild.
That doesn't sound like something I want to talk about. But he did do that. That is true. And then he gets less than a 1 year stint with TNA. This is where I think he's kind of he's really broken down at this point. Yeah, you can kind of tell there's not much he can really do.
So he leaves WCW at the end of 99 or 2000 or something?
Yeah, somewhere in there, yeah. And he confronts the owner wrestler of TNA, Jeff Jarrett. And this is kind of tough to talk about. His last match was at the pay-per-view Turning Point. He's teaming with Jeff Hardy and AJ Styles, which is that's kind of cool. So you actually had a match with Hardy, Savage, and Styles. Come on. I mean, think about the people that overlap Savage's run in wrestling. Styles got a piece of that. Okay, that's fucking cool. And that's where he defeats the quote kings of wrestling, which was Jarrett, Nash, and Hall. Kind of everything's trying to repeat this whole NWO. Facade, right?
Everybody does that.
Yeah, and it nothing's going to compare to it. Once it's done, it's done. You can't do it again. And Savage was actually scheduled to win the TNA Championship but he actually left due to health concerns at that point. So that was his last match.
Did he get it? Randy Savage just pinned the NWA champion. My God!
I do believe that it was at the time the NWA championship, right?
Yeah,
NWA was
Yeah, they were
TNA.
carrying the title there.
So
Yeah,
Savage actually, if he had won, that would have been the first time he ever won the NWA Heavyweight Championship. If he did win it,
it's kind of a shame because I think he's worthy.
I mean,
of
it was
that.
a shell of its former self. It wasn't the real.
You
it was the NWA, but it wasn't.
I'm just saying, if you can call yourself an NWA champion, that's pretty sick.
They appreciate it. Though.
You know, yeah,
it
didn't work out. It's appreciated.
Still rolling today.
Yeah, there you go. So he left due to health concerns, guys, and this is kind of the fast forward. So we have the tough news at the end here. On May 20th of 2011, Savage actually dies at the age of 58. He was with his wife and had crashed into a tree.
High school sweetheart, right? He ended up marrying her?
He ended up marrying
Or
her.
college sweetheart.
Yeah, and
just signed a Legends deal.
it was everyone thought at first, oh, he lost control of the vehicle, crashed into a tree. That's what killed him.
That's a good point by Cuz. He actually
Yeah,
did.
got to go over that part a little bit.
Yeah,
What's
because like he signed the
Legends
Legend
deal.
deal. He was like
The
they did the
reconciliation.
E3 or whatever, the EA, wrestle
W2K
video
games.
con or
Yeah.
whatever, yeah. And then they always relaunch like, what's who's going to
It's
be
like the Warrior incident.
Yeah,
That's
who's
what it's
going
like.
to be the sponsor of the next or the top guy that's going to advertise the next wrestling game, and they turned the lights out and you heard ooh yeah, and then like it came up and it showed his eyes and it said WWE 2K whatever it was, 11 or 12 or whatever it was.
You young punks ain't got nothing on the Macho Man Randy Savage and my generation, yeah, and all the legends, yeah, because I'm telling you.
So it's so sad. It gets to the point where they're on the.
They were actually they were going to.
They were
and-
reconciling.
Yeah.
It was all set up.
Just like the Warrior story.
And yeah, it's tough. And it's interesting because he crashed into a tree, and you went, oh, he crashed into a tree. That would kill people, but that's not really what it was. They were strapped in. They suffered minor injuries from that. When they actually did the autopsy, they found out that Savage had a massive heart attack, and that's what caused him to lose control of the vehicle. The autopsy actually showed over 90% blockage to the heart, and it was something that Savage never had knowledge of, so obviously he never treated what was diagnosed as, and I'm going to butcher this, it's atherosclerotic heart disease is what Savage actually was officially called for in his death. That's what he died from. Anything you guys want to talk about that? It's a tough subject, because
it sucks, because I mean he had pulled away and he was just going to come back probably in wrestling.
It was a
but he
pure
had to
wrestling
go
contract.
away and get himself right personally. He married his high school sweetheart and he was really happy. And obviously he reconciled with WWE because in 2K, it's funny, 2K Sports has been like the liaison for a lot of guys like coming back, like Warrior, Savage, Goldberg. When you get the cover of the video game, all of a sudden it's this old legend, and then they start showing up and they sign a legend contract. So Savage was kind of one of the first that would do that, and come back. And it sucks because he probably would have been on Raw and SmackDown and kind of did a legend thing or whatever. And so that sucks. Like you never got to see what he would have done with his legend role or, what would have happened. And, it sucks. I remember I was actually at work the day that he died. I went in my break room and I refreshed my phone and I saw the headlines like, legendary star Macho Man dies. And it's just like, what the fuck? Like, and it was, what a lot of guys died from unknown heart disease. They did. Savage was honest. He did growth hormones. He did steroids. He, especially when he came back in '99 WCW, he was fucking jacked. Like you could tell he was fucking like super swole and like on something. And this is just what he did. And it changed that, the growth hormones, I think, is what fucked a lot of people up. People like Pillman and Guerrero and all those guys, like they died
in the heart.
Yeah. They died from major heart attacks. Warrior did steroids. I'm sure he did growth hormones. Like they all thought growth hormones was, it's a hormone that helps me grow and my muscles nerded. They thought it was better than steroids, but actually it enlarged your heart so big that like it got diseased and it just fucking, it just gave out on you, man.
Over 90% blockage on Savage when they opened them up.
That was all from fucking like steroid abuse and all that stuff. It's from making your heart's a muscle. So when you take something that grows your muscles, your heart grows. And then when you get off that, it deflates like a balloon. And so it's got all this extra flappage and shit, and it traps stuff, and you get all that calcium trapped in there and like all the other stuff and cholesterol. And
Did you know Jess was the doctor?
I'm a fucking Jess MD. Why are you fucking
Jess Williams.
fucking look it up. Heart flapping.
It's in the Geneva Convention.
Heart flapping.
Look it up, bro. So
yeah, and that's just what happened. He's one of the guys that fell victim to that, where it's like he died way too soon. He did
58 years old.
I hate to say, he did a lot of fucking stuff that he shouldn't have done in his
Yeah.
body. Not like drugs like we know them, but fucking like workout shit and stuff to make himself physically look better. Savage was always very self-conscious about his look.
And I hate to have to defend that kind of stuff, but back in those days, man, doctors prescribed that shit like, oh, recovery, you're gonna recover faster. You're hurt,
Yeah.
let's give you these. Oh, you're still recovering, let's give you some more. It's very similar to the opioid epidemic that we're dealing with now. You can go to 4 different doctors and get the same script, and it's bullshit and it's killing people. Steroids and growth hormone, they've kind of gotten around that. They've kind of nipped that. But the sad thing is that's a very low percentage of the major crises that we're dealing with now. I don't want to get off on a crazy fucking drug tangent, but it's the same kind of problem. Oh, you need to recover. You need this. Oh, you're in pain. Let me give you this. And I hate to say it, they all fall into that, and then they obviously abused it, and they used it to take advantage to make their bodies larger, and they pay the ultimate price for that. So, I wanted to go over some things before we wrap up completely, just to give you an idea of the career of the Macho Man. I've got 5 bullet points here, and you guys can jump in, add or take away, or call me out on my bullshit anytime. Number one thing I discovered was 29 titles won over the esteemed Macho Man career. He was a 2-time WWF champion. He was a 4-time WCW champion. He was a 1987 King of the Ring. He's a 1995 World War III winner. Second bullet point, he was a headliner for WrestleMania 4, 5, and 8.
Well,
I mean, back in those days, the only person that could headline more was Hogan.
remember the other point that out of about 74 pay-per-view matches, he main evented about 35 of them.
Yes. Yeah. No, absolutely. Out of 74
That
pay-per-views.
tells you a lot about
The Macho Man Randy Savage.
Randy Savage.
Little crazy. I thought it was funny. He's described as one of the greatest wrestlers who ever lived by ESPN's Bill Simmons. Kind of a big deal, right? Many believe he's the only one that comes close to the drawing power of Hogan in the rock and wrestle area. We know Attitude is another story. That was a whole other genre, a whole other set of money, inflation, all that. But in the rock and roll era, the only person who can really lace up Hogan's boots was Savage at that time. Even Flair technically didn't draw money, even though Flair's amazing. And that's not his fault. But the only person who came close to the drawing power of Hogan was Savage in those time frames.
No, and that's what makes him who he is.
Yeah, exactly right. And
That's what gives him his place.
And the last one I have is kind of fun. He had a very successful relationship with Slim Jim. So what do you guys have to say about the whole genre of the Macho Man Randy Savage, a legacy? I know this was the WCW TNA portion, and the unfortunate we have to talk about his death. It's always hard. It's the same thing when Savage dies, when Warrior dies, we all kind of get shook because we grew up on those guys, right? Anything you guys want to say about Savage before we wrap up today?
I think that the Warrior was the guy that was anointed to be Hulk.
Yep.
After, and it didn't pan out that way.
That was the torch.
And for a lot of different reasons, whether it was Hulk politicking or Warrior mentally not being able to handle the run with the torch or whatever. But then you had this guy who they knew, he's just going to be the placeholder real quick. Warrior was kind of going to be the guy to replace Hulk. That's I think what Vince really wanted. But Macho Man really could have been the guy the whole time. He just took his place. But that year that Macho Man was champion, he was on fire. He held the houses. He was a popular star in a different way. He wasn't Hulk, but he was like this different type of character that was just as popular in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways. And it was because of Hulk that he got a lot of attention at first. Hulk did really like him in the back and said, hey, let me work with him, in 86, 87. And it worked out, it worked really well. Fortunately, those two guys had a lot of, if they would have just gotten along better in the back or Hulk wasn't a bitch sometimes, like maybe they maybe Savage would have been 3 or 4-time WWF champion, and it would have been a bigger deal. Who knows? And then he just hit these weird pitfalls in his career where Vince just wanted him to be on commentary. So for a year, he burned that up. And, it's just a lot of stuff that the injuries in WCW, it seemed like he went over there and he ran hard for 95 and 96 and then kind of started getting injured and, just contract disputes and all that stuff. I don't, and I'm sure if he was around, I think he would say he did not end his career though he wanted to end his career.
I agree.
I think Macho Man deserved something a little bit better. I think he deserved to leave WCW and go back to WWF and kind of maybe have a couple WrestleMania matches like Hulk did with The Rock or whatever.
Or even what Angle's done recently.
Yeah, and maybe just end it like that, maybe. But Savage had really bad hip problems, and a lot of people don't know that. From dropping that elbow, if you watch the way he dropped that elbow, he fucked his hip up really
sometimes
bad.
Twice a night, bro.
Yeah.
I mean,
so Macho Man every night on house shows, sometimes twice a night, hitting his hip, and that's just the way he fell on that elbow to protect his opponent and all that stuff.
If Hogan needs hip replacements on leg drops, imagine what Randy would have needed on elbow drops.
Oh yeah,
from the top rope.
And so Macho had a lot of hip problems, and I think that really hindered him towards like 98, 99. And why he wasn't able to be as sprite as he wanted to be in TNA. And I don't think why he was able to go back to the WWF run. I think Savage, the main reason why I think he never went back to WWF is Savage, I think, always felt this way. I want to be in the ring somehow. I don't want to be like just commentating.
And they were not interested in that.
I just think that, I think later they were interested in everything in 2003, 4, 5 after WCW, but I don't think Savage wanted that. He was repairing his personal life. He connected with his high school sweetheart and did what he wanted to do. He did this stupid travel shit for a while and like all that stuff. And
be a man, Hogan.
And so I think that, I think Macho Man inside, I think him figuring out what he wanted to do prevented him from coming back in like 2003, 4, 5 in WWF and, ending it right. So Stephanie McMahon stuff and all that, just put that shit to bed. Like that was just silly talk. And like, it just, Macho Man was a different kind of character. And I think he had a lot of pride in his legacy and all that. And he didn't want to come back unless he really felt he could do something. I don't want to be just this sad case that gets out there and limps in the ring or fucking doesn't do anything. Even though he was kind of like that in TNA, he was that guy. He could barely move. Yeah. And it sucked really bad. And, but he didn't get a chance to come back and make right for it. It sucked.
Yeah,
that he died. Obviously it sucks, but I think his legacy is, I think he stands on his own. He was such a different character than anybody else. And I think you had to book him different. You had with the dynamic with Elizabeth, and he did great stuff without her with Sherry and all that stuff. And Savage was so good, like in there. And like I said, the highlights of the WCW career was his matches with Flair, and DDP were so good. And go back and watch that. That was him on his own working with these guys in the back and just saying, let's just go out there and fucking tear the house down. Let's do it. I think Macho's legacy is just going to be individuality. I think just he was not like the Hogan, which they wanted the Warrior to be, and the Warrior was cut from the same cloth. So was Goldberg. So was, think about that. It was just Macho Man was the perfect combo of both. If you say Flair on the heel side was the perfect combo of charisma and in-ring talent,
Savage could do that.
Savage could do both, but he was you want to remember Savage as a face more than anything. He was the face version of like, he had a great character. He could do anything you wanted him to do, soap opera storylines, whatever. But then wrestling wise, Savage was excellent and he knew how to book a match. I think if you don't think of Savage as an in-ring technician, you're fine. That's a correct thought, but he knew how to book and storyline a match and storyboard a match. He knew exactly what to do in there and how to execute it physically. I think Savage introduced that. I'm sure people wrote storyboards out before, but Savage made it famous on like the main stage of like, it's okay to do it. You want to call it in the ring? Sounds good. I'm going to be in front of X amount of people and on WrestleMania pay-per-view and 1 million people are going to buy this pay-per-view. I'm going to make sure we script the shit out of this and make sure it's perfect.
Yeah. Could you imagine if Macho was another Pat Patterson and on major runs and major federations like WWE?
Well, that's why he and DDP did so well. DDP likes to script stuff out too, right?
Imagine
so both those guys together had no problem scripting.
Imagine if you had Macho and Pat Patterson, in the machine and they're booking matches and they're telling them, well, no, don't do this yet. Hold it a little longer. Do that. Just the little things matter, and Macho understood all the little things like that. Just did.
I think he loved in the ring too much. That's why he didn't want to stay in the back.
Yeah,
for a long time.
I always wonder if he could have found a realm in the match booking, maybe not creative, but in the storytelling inside the ring with these young guys, I don't know. I mean, I would have loved to have seen what
And it's
could have
funny,
been
a
done.
lot of people say, they'll throw in any name. They're just this person's just as big as Hulk, and this person is too.
No.
And I may agree or disagree, but really, like the person that really was probably the closest to him was Savage.
Yeah.
Like he was a household name just as well. Everybody knew him as a Slim Jim guy. Everybody knew Macho Man as Slim Jim.
And there was nobody more.
You
versatile.
got to a point where people who didn't know wrestling, oh yeah, Hulk, I know Hulk. Oh, you know Macho Man? Fuck yeah, I know Macho Man, the Slim Jim guy. Yeah. Like, and so Macho Man became that level on a lot of.
Well, that's why you could say maybe he didn't, he obviously, Hogan made wrestling what it was. So maybe he wasn't on par with him on that. But pop culture, Slim Jim, that's what.
Yeah, he was the first guy
he was
since
up
Hulk
there, man.
that,
He
came
was huge.
out there and figured it out. He got the Slim Jim thing.
Branded himself.
Honestly,
Yeah.
Macho did it without too many movies. I mean, I think he did a few parts.
Yeah,
of
Macho
movies.
really was like an actor.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No.
So
No,
I mean, he was in Spider-Man.
He was Bonesaw in Spider-Man.
Yeah,
And since, what a funny coincidence since he started off as the Spider.
Yeah,
Right.
that's funny actually. Yeah.
Yeah, little.
Yeah,
little
so I
back to
mean,
the
Macho
ones.
Man, I
Full
don't know
circle,
how.
huh?
It's funny. I he's got to be in your top 10. I think. I just think that's an automatic.
Top 5 for me.
Yeah. I mean, maybe some people's top 5. I think that would be totally appropriate.
Well, I was talking about this I get weird on the forums, but I always feel like a few people, when you say, hey, who's in your Mount Rushmore of wrestlers, and you see a lot of great ones. You obviously you see Hogan, you see Flair, and then then the last two always seem to get rotated. You see an Angle, you see an Eddie in there, you see Taker in there, you see Stone Cold obviously in there too. You see The Rock
Damn
in there,
right he is.
and there's always that shift. And then I see a couple people go, is no one going to talk about fucking Savage here? And I'm like, thank you. Like nobody understands. Like, God, there's so many things that could have changed if Savage wasn't in the picture. You might not have seen a Rock or a Macho Man. You couldn't seen that versatile face to heal the face again, which even Hogan did. But Savage did it first. I mean, I know Hogan was a heel first, but the type of stuff that Hogan did to be a face and then become a heel may not, Savage shows the way. He kind of paves the way for a lot of that. He should be, in a lot of ways, in a lot of comparisons, he should be in that top 4, that Mount Rushmore talk, that Mount Rushmore conversation. I know a lot of people don't want to hear it because they're way into the attitude area, and I get it, and that's your opinion. But that's, like I said, that's just where we'll leave it. I mean, leave that argument open. It's one of the greatest things we can have. We can totally argue about who's on your Mount Rushmore, who's in your top 5. Savage needs to be in the discussion, and he gets overlooked, in my opinion, way too much. Some of you guys need to go back and get educated on some Savage work because it's amazing, and it paved a lot of wrestling for 20 years of what happened with Macho Man, how he filled in for other people, things that shouldn't have happened that did happen, and WCW taking a turn in a different way. Macho Man's a big part of all that. He's a big part of everything.
He was a part of the NWO.
Yeah.
He was a part of that hype where that 2.5 year period where they actually beat WWF. So Hulk Hogan, same thing. He was that rock and wrestling era. So was Macho Man. And they go to WCW, and they're both part of the time where WCW beat WWF. Actually, it was the number 1 wrestling promotion in the United States. So Savage saw all that.
Savage once again bringing ratings back. So, and that's pretty much it for our topic today, guys. As always, you can reach us via Instagram at O.W.P 2019, SoundCloud at Our Wrestling Podcast, YouTube at Our Wrestling Channel, or do the easy thing, download WrestlePost. It's an app at no charge to you on both Apple and Android platforms, and you can join us along with other great podcasts of the day. That's Dave, Jess, and Cuz with the O.W.P. Have a good one, guys.
Gotta have beef, gotta have spice, need a little excitement. Snap into a Slim Jim. Oh, yeah.